All right, listeners, before we jump into today's podcast, I just want to let you guys know that the Hometown Haunts and Hops Festival is back this year. After a huge success last year at Mayflower Brewery, we are going to be doing our second annual Hometown Haunts and Hops event on September 21st at Mayflower Brewery. The doors will be opening at 1. It'll run till about 7. Our lead guest will be John Kaser, the Crypt Keeper himself. It has been 35 years of Tales from the Crypt, and we're going to celebrate this year with him joining us for autographs and a panel. And beyond that, we're going to have a bunch of other live podcasts. We're going to have a retro video game area. We are going to have Tim Curry's screen-worn Pennywise costume from the original It series. We are going to have haunt-related vehicles such as Ecto-1, Raccoon City Police Cruiser, and even a 1984 Cadillac hearse on site for photo ops. We are going to have exclusive hot sauce, an exclusive action figure, beer releases, vendors. It is going to be a full day of fun at Mayflower Brewery. Tickets start at $25 for that day, but we're also going to be doing some movie showings the Friday night before. We're going to be showing WNUF Halloween Special at Dirty Water Distillery that Friday night, and over at Sour Not Sorry in downtown Plymouth, we're going to be showing Pennywise, the story of It, an award-winning documentary of the making of the original It TV show. So you can find all this information on our website, Inebri-art.com, and you can get your tickets there as well. It'll be a fun day. We had a great time last year. There's going to be food trucks and music, and it's just going to be a whole day to hang out and enjoy everything spooky. So we'll see you there. Called Inebri-art. We started off as a art group that met at a bar.
The what?
Inebri-art.
Oh, Inebri-art.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that takes a new spin.
Yeah, so we started off as kind of like a social club of artists that met, go out for a couple beers, and since then we've...
You get inebriated and then you talk art.
Yeah, sometimes, or sometimes you just draw.
Happened on my tour bus recently with one of the VIP guests.
Yeah. But we've also expanded now. We have the podcast. We hang art for local businesses. We run art shows and help anything we can do to help kind of like grow the art community.
I am fully for that.
Yeah.
There's not enough art, and nowadays it's actually not such a great time for art.
No, it's not.
We live in an artistic wilderness.
Yeah.
That's my perception.
And
getting worse by the day.
Yeah. When we started the podcast, we wanted all creative people on it. So we've had stand-up comedians, chefs, musicians, comic book creators, all sorts of different types.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we're good?
Oh, just go
for
it.
Welcome back, Inebri-arts. This is Andy of the Inebri-art Podcast. And we are here at the Spire Performing Arts Center on Main Street in Plymouth. And performing tonight here is Uli Jon Roth. Did I get the pronunciation of that right?
Yeah.
Oh, not
very
bad.
cool.
I figured I'd screw that up. And you're here playing at the Spire tonight. So what brought you specifically to Plymouth?
My agent.
Your agent? Did he book you for it?
Well, we have relatively little input on where we play. Although the agent will run these things by me and say, here's what we can do,
Yeah.
And a lot of it is also to do with logistics.
Yeah.
When you're on a tour like that, you're traveling all over the States and all over Canada, and sometimes it's not possible to route certain places. Like one promoter says, I can't do a Monday. The next guy says, I need a Saturday, you know, and then it becomes tricky,
Yeah.
to do a tour like that. Now, Plymouth, I'm glad we're here because I don't get to play Massachusetts that often.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know, but we play in California all the time, or New York, upstate, wherever. But Massachusetts is rare for me. And particularly when we drove into town here, Plymouth, it's like such a nice vibe to it, It's like one of these places that you remember.
Yeah.
And particularly with all the history that's attached to it. I'm going to check that out later on because we're right by the seafront.
We also have great food,
nice.
too.
Well, we we can sample that later.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, at what point did you get started in music? I mean, has it been something you've done since an early age? Did you come from a musical family?
Musical, yes, but not a family of musicians.
Yeah.
Except that my uncle trained to be a concert violin player. I guess that's as close as it got. My dad was highly musical. He had a really beautiful tenor voice.
Yeah.
And but I started out really as a kid listening to the Beatles.
Yeah.
That's what drew me in, and folk songs, and melodies. I was always a sucker for melody from the beginning.
Yeah.
It just drew me in. The first children's songs that I heard, I remember them still, and some of them were beautiful. So yeah, that's how it started. Then I took lessons on the trumpet of all instruments.
So you didn't go to guitar right away?
No. I learned the classical trumpet first, but it wasn't really the instrument for me.
Yeah.
Later on, I became multi-instrumentalist, and it's very easy for me to learn pretty much any instrument. But the trumpet was the first one, and then maybe 2 years later or something like that, I suddenly discovered my affinity towards the guitar. And
what was it about the guitar?
It was the sound, and there was just a magical attraction.
Yeah.
I can't really explain it, but I think I saw a band, and I stood right next to the guitar player, and he played a few notes on his bottom E string, and for some reason it just went click, And then when I heard the upper strings close by through an amplifier, it just did me in, and it drew me in. I wanted that sound, and I got that sound. And so very soon afterwards I got my first guitar, and the rest is history. I went very, very quickly. It's almost like I learned to play it like on the fly. I was astonished at how easy it was, And we didn't have any guitar teachers then.
So you're kind of self-taught?
Yeah, you just had your records.
Yeah.
You figured it out by ear,
Oh, kids got it easy now. They can just go to YouTube.
Yeah. Too easy. That may actually be detrimental.
Yeah, you think so?
Yes, it's a bit of an inflation, because if we had to work for it back then, because there wasn't any such thing, and working for it means you have to find it yourself, meaning you have to apply yourself, and it's very good for your ears and your imagination. If somebody hands it to you on the platter, you may become proficient quite quickly, but it's not quite the same as if you're finding it yourself.
Well, I feel like you generally learn more from making mistakes.
Yeah.
And if you have to stumble through it yourself, you may make more mistakes that way. So obviously you're really well known for being in the Scorpions. What bridged you from like the Beatles to metal? Like, how do you make that?
You see, when
transition?
I was in the Scorpions, it wasn't called metal.
Yeah.
It didn't exist as such. We were not a metal band. We were, well, back then, if you classified, it was called a melodic hard rock band.
Yeah. Do you not like the term metal, or do you feel it's inaccurate?
Well, I like metal
Yeah.
in terms of gold, silver, uranium, etc. But for music, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it describes a certain mindset and a certain sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally don't really like that sound so much. The typical metal sound for me is two-dimensional.
Yeah.
I like three-dimensional. And the dimension that they're missing as dynamics.
Yeah.
It's usually all like to the wall, and
Right.
every instrument like totally in your face, and that's not exactly what I like.
Yeah.
So I shy away from metal, although people think I'm this metal guitarist, but I'm not.
Right.
I was maybe a bridge towards that.
Yeah.
So I've got something to answer for.
So, did you try to, when you were with them, did you try to have more of a dynamic sound and not?
We had
a
more dynamic sound, absolutely.
I mean, the
And
song
we
that I
still
remember the
do.
most is "When's It Change," and that was
that was
breaking
after
the
my
mold.
time.
Oh,
That was after my time, but that's a good example. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not metal at all.
No,
and yet it was their biggest hit.
Right.
It's not metal. It's very dynamic. It's a beautiful tune, and very, very well played and sung.
Yeah. So, we were talking earlier with the promoter here, and he's telling us some of the people you've played with. Can you just list some of the highlights that people you've played with?
Not really. There's just too many things to think about.
Yeah.
Because then I have to leave something out or so, It's better if you ask me the
Oh, okay.
All
right.
Let's talk about art. That's more interesting.
Oh, sure. Well, who do you like artistic?
Well, because my dad was an artist, and he wrote novels, but he was also really good in oil painting and stuff. And so I caught early on how he was drawing and doing oil paintings or watercolors, and he taught me some things,
Oh, do you still paint?
I used to paint.
Yeah.
I used to do oil paintings, but it became too addictive for me.
Yeah.
And because then I had to make a choice. I started to do more painting than music, and I've already got so many things on my plate that I have to manage my time a little wisely. And I thought to myself, okay, if I get into the painting thing, that's all very good and well, but I tend to take things to extremes, and then I might end up spending all my time painting, and I thought that was not my destiny,
It's interesting because I made a similar choice when I got accepted into art school, because I gave up playing guitar and saxophone.
Oh, the other way around.
And because I knew I just wouldn't have the time.
There was also a physical reason, because somehow I was pretty much allergic to the fumes of the solvents.
Oh yeah, it's
so
pretty
after
harsh.
an hour of oil painting, which I love the most because I'm an oil kind of guy. I love the layers of a Rembrandt painting, where you do layer after layer and glazes,
right?
Scumbling and glazes, but after an hour of painting, usually I started to get stomach aches.
Yeah.
And it was always the same. So I figured if I keep this up, I'll get sick.
It's one of the reasons why I don't oil paint.
In the beginning, I didn't. Oh, you have that too?
Oh,
a lot of my friends don't. They don't have a problem with that.
But then I was talking to a friend of mine who's an excellent oil painter, and I said to him, like, oh, don't you get, sick from the fumes or bother you? It's like, no, I use Dawn dish detergent.
Dawn dish detergent?
To clean his brushes and whatnot, because he says it's... they use it to clean up after oil spills.
It's not just the brushes. It's also
the
when
paint's
you're
full of toxic
the
stuff,
the paints, and sometimes you need to clean the canvas or you wipe something off, etc. Maybe nowadays there are solvents that are just as good, but back then that's what you used to use, know, and for me it was a bit of a problem. To this day, I mean, I've got artistic friends, like one of my best friends, Susanne Ohlendorf. She is a painter in Germany, and whenever I'm at her flat, and she's just painted a bunch of things, I do get within an hour I can feel my stomach telling me get out of here. So there you go.
Have you ever tried anything else, like watercolor?
I've done watercolor as a kid, of course. My dad taught me how to do that properly. Meaning properly, like he taught me a lot of things.
Yeah.
Composition, And then what he used to do was not pure watercolor, but he used to use a black ink pen and then draw the outlines and then the watercolor it. And that technique he showed me early on, and so I did some like that.
I always struggle with watercolor because there's a certain amount where you just kind of have to let the watercolor do what it's going to do.
Of course, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
I'm more
precise.
like I want to be more rigid.
It's not precise.
No.
I mean, some people can do that, but most people will struggle with precision, and that's not what it's all about. The watercolor is, as the word implies, water flows, and it flows in its own way.
Right.
And some people are really good at it, but watercolor is not as easy as it seems.
Oh, no, not at all.
Particularly if you want really good results.
Yeah. And I somewhat takes some restraint and patience, because sometimes you have to let it dry, and sometimes you want to work wet on wet. Do you, since you get to tour all over, do you kind of make it a point when you're in an area to kind of swing into an art museum?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. But I have my favorites. I tend to go to big, well-known museums who've got, like, paintings of the old masters.
Yeah.
I'm very much a traditionalist because I love Renaissance art, anything from Botticelli, Leonardo, Raphael, and Michelangelo, but then also Dutch masters, Rembrandt.
Yep.
I'm a bit of a specialist with when it comes to Rembrandt. I'm even collecting Rembrandt copies by people who are really good.
Right.
So to the untrained eye, they look pretty much like the real deal.
Yeah.
And I've used some of them in my artwork for the albums and videos, as backgrounds. But I do like some of the more recent art, but I'm not a fan of 20th century art. And,
I'm not
into Cubism. I'm not into any of that kind of stuff. If it gets too abstract for me, I just tend to switch off. It just doesn't turn me on. I want to see real art. I want to see a person's face with a spirit, and not some kind of distorted, contorted figure, which, to me just looks ugly. And I don't like ugly. I like aesthetically pleasing things.
Right.
Now, sometimes a painting needs to be ugly. If it depicts, like, a Caravaggio kind of theme where somebody gets murdered or so, then at the same time I wouldn't hang that in my house.
Right.
Because I don't want to be reminded of that moment in time at all times. So
you're looking at it
I'm
more...
a bit of a sissy when it comes to that. To me, a painting transports me into a world that is a different world than what it is. A different aspect of that world. Basically, I like something that's behind the curtain. I want to see the spirit behind things. Not that you can see it, but in a way you can. It's like Rembrandt was able to do that. He painted people who were anything but beautiful. Most of his subjects were really not beautiful in the classic kind of sense, like as opposed to Leonardo, who only painted beautiful. Although he had a penchant for doing ugly people, also he sought them out, like misformed faces, and he did all these amazing drawings. He was fascinated by that. But if you see like one of his Madonnas or so, they're always like top of the line beautiful. And Rembrandt was kind of like the opposite. He was fascinated by trying to bring out the inner beauty, that the spirit of a person, and he was always or often able to do that. I find that fascinating, and so that's what I gravitate to.
What about more impressionistic paintings?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like Monet, Manet, Turner. Turner is not really impressionistic, but he was kind of the bridge to that, was his amazing sunsets and all this, I do like impressionists, but there are some that are my favorites and some that are not, and the more modern, like Van Gogh was a great artist. Not in any way technically impressive for me, but artistically and with the power of just what he did, it was pretty amazing. You know. So yeah, I can relate to that kind of art. Nowadays, I sometimes see beautiful pictures by people, but usually they're not famous. You tend to see something like maybe on the internet and so on. You think, wow, that person is really good.
Yeah.
And you never hear of them again.
Right.
Usually the ones that are famous nowadays, pretty horrible. I mean, or totally uninspired.
Yeah.
That's what I call uninspired. Of course, that's very subjective, but that's my view of the world.
Right.
I have my own view on what I think is inspired or not, and a lot of what I see nowadays is just trash. Particularly the ones that are really expensive.
Yeah.
It's just a joke.
Yeah. So I take you're not a big
cannot
Banksy
take
fan?
it seriously. Actually, I'm not even familiar with that.
He's kind of coming out of the street art graffiti area.
Yeah, but most of that would not turn me on.
Yeah.
Do
you find that when you're creating music that visual art inspires you in that way? Like, do you keep things around?
And it's not quite that simple, but what it is this, that I'm a very visual animal. I can feel the world through my eyes and through my ears, and somehow my ears have eyes. So when I have music in front of me, when I'm listening to music, images are always strong.
Yeah.
And so in all of my music, you will find images. Not static but moving, but they're not images like photographs. They're more like images from a different world, which is half experienced through the ear and half through the eye. Difficult to say. Well, like for instance, I'm playing a guitar lead, and the guitar is soaring up in the melody, and it's going higher and higher. To me, then I might see birds' wings moving, or when the guitar speeds up, I see a spiral or a tunnel of water that kind of spirals faster and faster and then disperses, Or I hear a single note and I play a note, and in my mind I then can project myself into that note and be in the tip of that note, and it's like a white light which moves in time, and you can be in that note and you can be in this movement, or you can also step outside of it and see it from a distance, and that's exactly what I do. I see it from various angles. Sometimes I go in, sometimes I'm staying from the outside, but it's always kind of visual.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you could actually paint as such, because it's in between the eye and the ear.
Right, it's somewhat visual, somewhat conceptual.
I cannot really explain it. And of course, also, the emotional aspect of it is something that a note of music or a sound is an incredible transporter of emotion. If you listen to somebody's voice, most people will be able to pick up whether that person is angry or sad or elated just from the music and the actual sound that comes out.
Yeah.
It's the same with any instrument, and a good player is able to kind of transport that. And then most in the audience are kind of able to relate to it. Maybe not everybody, but most people can relate and pick up these things. And that also creates an image inside of you, an emotional image.
Right.
And it's a living emotional image. So the borderlines between these three arts are very fluent when you look behind the scenes. On the face of it, if you go and you see a painting, then here's a painting. That's basically a frozen moment in time. Then you go see a movie. Yeah. That is a moving picture in time, like basically consecutive constellation of many different paintings that move, So that's one art form. And music is very similar, because with music you're moving through time. And the song has a beginning and end, and the journey in between, just like in a movie, But from the outside, these are three completely different things. From the inside, they're not that different.
Yeah.
Because the musical composition also has a yin and yang aspect of where certain parts even in the rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, you have certain things that are highlighted and they are accented. It's the same in the painting, like a Rembrandt painting, specializing in chiaroscuro, meaning he will paint the opposites of dark and bright, light and shadow. Like half of the face maybe in the dark, the other is fully lit.
Yeah.
But where the light hits, that's like an accent.
Right. Yeah.
It's basically an energy point, and it has more energy than if it was in the dark. And it's exactly the same in the music. And a good artist will know how to distribute these energy points in such a way that it speaks to us organically, without us even questioning it. You're not supposed to sit there and say, oh, there's something wrong with this painting. No, it should be just so that you enjoy it, and then you can take it apart and say, well, I enjoy it actually because he's doing this and this and this technically, etc. And you can take it to another level.
And you brought
with music, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
A composition is basically a give and a take of moments of tension and relaxation. It's a journey through time, and it's a journey. And we, as the listener, we are the one who goes on the journey.
Yeah.
We become the music while listening through it, and it's like a two-way thing. And with visual art, it's exactly the same.
Yeah. And when you have an album, and this, I feel like this is more significant back when they were actual vinyl albums. But did you kind of think about like what images to put on that album to coincide with what kind of feelings?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not in the early days with the Scorpions albums, we always had terrible covers. You know, they were like really embarrassing with hindsight, both artistically and in terms of meaning. But afterwards, I became very conscious of that, and then I made sure that each album cover kind of at least represented or was in keeping with what the album was about. Yeah. Which is, of course, not an easy thing to do, and because my albums have like quite a diverse spectrum. Right. So one song might be this, the next song might be this, and what cover do you use? Mm-hmm. So the cover then becomes almost like yet another song. It becomes a focal point, like an ambassador for the music. Sure, yeah. But but it is just really another vantage point. It can never encapsulate the total of the music, Mm-hmm. The closest I got to that aspect was probably on my Under a Dark Sky album, where you see, and that's a painting that I saw in my mind while we were driving down to a festival, and there was a double rainbow in the sky, and the sky was dark, but there was this double rainbow, and suddenly in my mind's eye I thought a picture of all the cities of the world mm-hmm. in front of a dark sky, under a dark sky, but there was a rainbow covering it, and I didn't execute the cover myself, although I had a good hand in it, but I've got a friend who is really good with that. So I said, okay, do me create a canvas where you have like all the main buildings from antiquity, mm-hmm. from the pyramids to the Empire State Building,
the Leaning Tower of Pisa,
all of them,
that kind of stuff,
and put them, turn it into a city, mm-hmm. and he did, and I think I probably like this one a lot, this album cover.
Do you try to carry any of that visual art over to the stage performance?
Yes, we do, because we have a big screen at the back, as you can see today, and some of our songs have a story attached, which is then unfolding on the screen. Like, for instance, we have a song about called Hiroshima, about the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in 1945, and that's quite an epic. It's like a 12, 14-minute kind of epic through various phases, and we've got a video to run with that, and night after night that's one of the highlights of our show, because it kind of gets to people having the images coinciding with the music, you know.
Do you find a lot of inspiration from historical events like that? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're an artist, a history buff.
I'm fascinated by history.
Yeah.
You know, and historic. That was one of the prime historic events of all time.
Sure.
You know, there is also something to be said for, you know, it's possible that we haven't had a third world war because this bomb was dropped.
Right.
You know, because people really began to understand how
the destructive
powerful
force of it,
a weapon it is. You know, so there's something to be said for that. Anyways, yeah.
So, Tony at TKM Productions told me to ask you specifically about something. He told me that you have Jimi Hendrix's last guitar.
No,
is that not true?
I don't have it. The guitar is in the vault. I'm basically what you might say the curator.
Yeah,
it belongs to the family of Monica Danneman, my deceased girlfriend.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of just overseeing it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's been in the vault for quite a few years now. And hopefully one day we intend to exhibit it together with all her amazing Jimi Hendrix paintings that she did.
Oh, she was also an artist?
Yes, she was an artist, yes. Yeah. And she was tremendous.
Yeah. Did she did Jimi Hendrix sit for the paintings that she did, or
it wasn't? She was Jimmy's last girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
You know, read up on the story.
Yeah,
and that's why she had that guitar.
Oh, nice. Do you have a specific museum in mind, or do you want it to kind of travel the world so people can see it?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So where can people go to find out information about your tour? And
just on the internet. That's what I would do. If I want to find something out nowadays, I don't go to the library. I just check the internet.
Yeah. All right. Uli, I want to thank you for giving us the time. This was really great. And
I finished my cup of coffee now. There you go.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you giving us time to talk, and this was really fascinating. I honestly never realized how much visual art was affecting music. But it's great. It's
a big subject, you know.
Yeah.
A big subject. One could talk about it for hours. And, yeah. It's a never-ending subject.
Well, because there's always new stuff coming up, so that's great. So keep up the great work, and thanks for coming to Plymouth.
Thanks for having me here.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.